tell me globally, like, what is the role of customs? You know, someone watching at home who doesn't know anything about customs, how would you, in very simple terms, explain what customs does?
Well, I'll explain it from an Australian point of view, and it'll probably relate to most jurisdictions in the world, and it does change from country to country. But in Australia, we call it a customs service, and it's just recently changed to the Customs and Border Protection Service. But there's three main functions, and they are protection, collection, and facilitation. So the protection is protecting our borders, whether it's goods going out of the country, export, or goods coming into the country, import, from things that are the nasties, whether it might be pornography, and they've got the jurisdiction to regulate that, maybe dangerous goods, chemicals that are dangerous, arms and ammunition, and particularly with terrorism, trying to stop those activities going on. So that's the protection.
Illicit substances as well, drugs, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. And there's quite on the Australian Customs website, and most countries will have a list of the things that are not allowed in or out of the country, or if you are allowed to, then there's a process and generally a permit, a licence, a quota, something like that to go through. So that's a protection. The next thing is collection. I guess we mostly know about that of customs duty and taxes.
Which are, it's GST in Australia and New Zealand. In Europe it's a VAT, and the Americans have sales tax. So it's the same concept everywhere you go.
Correct.
But you bring a good in, and then suddenly the government representative, which will be customs, will suddenly take the second role, which is to collect their money.
That's right. So in Australia, as many countries, there'll be a revenue collection. So the customs actually collect their own duty, which is their own purview, but also collect on behalf of the Australian Tax Office, GST, or Goods and Service Tax, or it might be in Europe a value-added tax. So they'll collect that. And the third area is facilitation, and this is where it's a customs service. We don't look at them as police so much, because whilst they're protecting from the bad stuff, they're actually saying, well, if you're a passenger and you're doing a legitimate travel, or if you're a business person and you're doing a legitimate business, import or export, then we want to help you to get your goods across our borders as smoothly as possible so that there's no disruption to your travel or your business. And so protection, collection, facilitation.
Gotcha. Perfect. And why are so many importers afraid of customs? I mean, it's kind of a scary word for a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you think that image has been created and continues till today?
Yeah, I think that's partly because it's probably grown up that we see a uniform and we think of police and we think of, strong arm tactics and things like that, and they're there to extract revenue. So we think, well, that's we've got to be a bit careful here. So that has been a perception, but I think shows like Border Protection and some of these shows that are on TV are actually showing they're actually doing a service to their community. And so I think that view is changing somewhat, and particularly as I've explained, if people see them there to help, and that's what I suggest to people. They don't just think of them
as a negative.
Look, because I say to people, well, talk to them. If you've got a problem, talk to them and talk to their management and see how they can help you to overcome your problems, because they are there to help, as long as you're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
So it's not a hard thing.
And okay, so you've got the customs, but then you have this concept of a customs broker.
Sure.
Right. Who is he? What does he do or she do? And how do they assist?
Okay. Well, a customs broker is generally a business outside of a government agency, and in Australia, there's two ways you can enter goods into Australia through customs. One is if you're the importer or you work for an importer, you can actually enter those goods, go through the paperwork, or these days it's online, go through the procedures and enter those goods on the importer's behalf because you are the importer.
Yeah. And is that a detailed process? Does it take a lot of time?
For imports it is quite... Yeah. There's quite a bit of information, and you do have to get it right because you're dealing with a computer. And if something doesn't match, it's going to reject it and hold up the process. So the other way in Australia is if you wish to outsource it, you go to a customs broker. And a customs broker, firstly, is an individual and there's male and female customs brokers, as there is in customs offices themselves. And so an individual is licensed, and these days you have to do a number of years study, pass an exam, be a fit and proper person, and go through a number of hoops, and then you can become a licensed customs broker. Now, a business that operates as a brokerage, they have to have individual customs brokers to operate as a corporate entity. So that it means that you are using trained people that are registered and approved by the government to actually operate as a customs brokerage. And if you don't have someone like that, you can't do it.
You can't operate it.
Exactly.
Can anyone become a customs broker? Like, what are the requirements? So you said you're fit a proper person, so that means that you probably haven't been to jail in the past.
Exactly.
That would rule you out. So pretty much anyone can do it. It's just like training to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatnot.
You just have to pass the qualifications and not just pass the courses, but actually show that you have an understanding. And generally, you have to have worked in a brokerage so that they can see that you've got the expertise and the knowledge in a working environment, not just a theoretical up in your head.
Yep, gotcha. You said there are two ways, okay? So you could do it yourself, and go online, or you could outsource it to a customs broker. When would you recommend someone does it themselves, and when would you, if ever, and when would you recommend you would outsource it?
Well, it's going to sound as though I'm pushing my own barrack, but I don't work as a customs broker these days. I don't do that anymore. But I think the only way I would suggest that people do it themselves, they do have to go through a process and get a digital certificate, which is a bit expensive, but you can do it. What you would probably need to do then is to actually, if you're having the same product come in time after time after time, one product, and you know the information, it's not going to be too hard. But if you've got different products
it's too much work.
The other thing is too that because a customs broker is not just clearing your entry, they're generally part of a freight forwarding organisation or a logistics company. Then what you're doing is you're working with a company that knows all the intricacies of the process, and they can manage that process for you. So instead of you having to do each step of the way and ring up people and say, is it ready to collect the container yet, and then hire a transport company. They basically know that they're doing it day in, day out for hundreds of clients. So they have a process, and that is a well-oiled process. So you're actually leveraging off their expertise.
Does it end up costing you a lot to use that service though?
Not really. When you look at the proportion to the cost of the goods, it's generally fairly insignificant.
If it's amortised around a container. Correct. And there are 500 widgets in the container.
Exactly.
You just divide the customs cost by 500 and you're paying a few dollars or something.
Exactly.
Gotcha.